move on to
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 8th regular session of the Cleveland Heights University Heights School Board. Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Ms. Wright.
here.
Mr. Posh.
Here.
Mr. Hines.
Here.
Ms. Serini. Ms. Lewis.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Serini is traveling today. She may jump on this if she can. She planned this meeting, or she planned her trip before we changed the meeting on account of a conflict we had with the Monticello 8th grade promotion. Let's jump into our agenda. Can we start with awards and recognitions?
Yes. Good evening and welcome. First, we're going to discuss our state qualifiers teams. It's been an excellent season for our student athletes at Heights High this school year, and I want to begin our recognitions for this evening by looking back at some of their accomplishments. For the first time in 18 years, the Heights High swim team competed at the Swimming and Diving State Tournament, sending 2 relay teams to compete in the 200 free relay and the 200 medley relay. Those swimmers were Emmett Fluharty, James Huff, Aiden Peters, and Andrew Tweets. Congratulations, students and Coach Budin. I must also add that for the second year in a row, the Heights High swim teams were named All-America Scholar teams for their combined GPAs. Both the boys and girls teams placed in the gold tier, meaning they are at the very highest level across the country. And we are very, very proud of this. The boys and girls track teams also had major accomplishments as they competed against local and statewide opponents, qualifying to participate in 11 events at this year's Ohio Indoor Track Finale. Those relay team runners were Jordan Brand, Asia Lee Fair, Mackenzie McNitt, Jordan Mormon, and Elle Mueller. Congratulations to these student athletes who finished strong despite the challenges of this very unique school year. And congratulations to Coach Scott McNulty and all of the coaching staff as well. The Heights High track teams also reigned victorious against local schools during the Lake Erie Track and Field Championships in May. The teams dominated in events such as the 4x400, 4x800, and the long jump. The girls team won second place overall, and the boys won first place, becoming the 2021 Lake Erie League Track and Field champions. The varsity football team went undefeated in the Lake Erie League for the second year in a row, earning back-to-back championship titles. And for the very first time in district history, the Heights High football team qualified for the state playoffs back-to-back. Congratulations to the football team, head coach Max Stevens, and the full coaching staff. The Lady Tigers soccer team, led by Coach Pat Gleba, has also had an undefeated record this season in the Lake Erie League and were crowned Lake Erie League champions. The Lady Tigers softball team was also crowned 2021 Lake Erie League champs, going 10-1 in the league this season. Coached by Rick Sullivan, they ended their season with an overall record of 10-4. The team was also led by senior Arden Lindbergh, who pitched every game in the season. Tiger baseball, led by Coach Ed Mugridge, achieved an overall record of 18-6, including a 10-1 record in the Lake Erie League. In a victory against Shaker Heights, the baseball team earned the 2021 Lake Erie League championship. The boys and girls cross-country teams, led by Coach McNulty, had great seasons. The boys team had a single runner, Braden Gallagher, qualify for regionals for the first time since 2015. Both teams ended the season as Lake Erie League champions. Overall, Heights High has represented our district extremely well this year, dominating the Lake Erie League with 7 conference championships. For the 3rd year in a row, the Heights Tigers are recipients of the President's Cup, which goes to the school who has the most success in the sports of the league. Congratulations are in order to students who have put in the work, the coaches and families who have been there to support our students every step of the way. And I want to give a special thanks to the athletic department, Joe D'Amato, Martha Pugsley, and Beth Avramot. Let's give all these student athletes and coaches a big round of applause. Next, our Tiger Team members of the month. We have the opportunity to recognize our Tiger Team members of the month for May. These staff members have been recognized by their peers and community for going above and beyond to create a culture of excellence in our district. For those awardees present tonight, when I call your name, please come forward actually to the stage, and we're going to take a picture with you. So great to have our awardees here, some of our awardees here tonight. For the Board of Education, Paul Lombardo. From Boulevard Elementary School, Cliff Sweeney. And board members, we can all just come and stand in the middle now.
Sure.
So we can take the picture.
So Beverly, we're all going to get in the picture this time.
You are the person this week. Excellent. Many other things. From Canterbury Elementary School, Abigail Reyes. From Delout Option Center, Karen Laboda. From Fairfax Elementary School, Lakeisha Taylor. From Garrity Elementary School, Daryl Lauschie. From Heights High School, Steve Walker. From Monticello Middle School, Andrette Calloway. From Noble Elementary School, Julie Beckles. I can't see everyone. From Oxford Elementary School, Megan Evans Erker. From Roxborough Elementary School, Kathy Shramo. And from Roxborough Middle School, Olivia Houston Ray. All right, congratulations to all our winners this month. So that concludes our recognitions for this evening. I'm going to now turn it over to, I feel like he's now our monthly correspondent on the superintendent's cadre, a 10th grade student, rising 11th grade student, Owen Bisker, for the superintendent's cadre report. Owen, take it away.
Superintendent Kirby, it is a pleasure to give the final student board report of the school year. Many thanks to all of you for these opportunities. Giving these reports have been a great experience. First, I want to tell you about the athletic team update and about upcoming events at Heights High. As of yesterday, football practices have begun. The boys and girls swim team have received accolades from the National Interscholastic Swim Coaches Association for their academic achievements, and the varsity programs were also named an All-American Scholar team for their combined GPAs. The track team's outstanding season concluded at the state meet on June 4th. The boys baseball team and girls softball team ended their season as LEL champions, and congratulations to all teams on amazing accomplishments this and seasons. The most notable update at the school is that it is now out and it is finally summer break. So relief to that. And personally, it goes without saying that this has been a challenging year for the students, the teachers, and everyone who played a part in making our school what it is. Although there are some negative aspects to this year, there are certainly positive things to highlight. We, as a school and as a community, have been able to come together and do our best to return to normal living. School came back in person, sports opened up again, and things are setting up for a better future altogether. With my freshman year ending abruptly due to COVID, I and all of my peers missed opportunities to socialize in a school environment. However, this year made up for lost time. I was able to see my friends again in school, I went to their games, I got to see my teachers and have a regular learning environment, and I got to be back in the school that I love. While things may not be totally back to normal right now, I can be at peace knowing that the future looks bright, and that we will all stick together to continue making great leaps towards that better future. Thank you all so much for your time, and thank you for another great year at Cleveland Heights.
Thank you, Owen.
Thank you, Owen.
Let's move on to statements from the audience. Sherry Noxon. Hi, Sherry. Can we just do a quick sound check? Or is the sound okay and everything?
Testing.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Sherry, go for it.
All right. I'm Sharon Naxon. I'm a community member speaking on behalf of many residents. And in the past, you've asked for my street address, and I respectfully declined to give that. Awareness of the need to reckon with the racist foundations, past and present, of our country has been on the minds of many Americans. Many well-intentioned people who benefit from white advantage have become painfully aware that despite our best intentions, we are incredibly late to the anti-racist movement. We are mindful that you each have been on your own journey about this topic. We are mindful of our district's strategic emphasis on equity and inclusion. Likewise, we are mindful of our district's work to become more fully trauma-informed. The context of these shared values helps us anchor ourselves in what this community stands for and what community members seek in our elected representatives. If we do not put our ethics into action, then these values, equity, inclusion, and trauma-informed operations, are empty, espoused tenets with no actual substance behind them. How do we put our core values into action? How do we operationalize an equitable, inclusive, and trauma-informed system head to toe? Answer: it starts at the top. Most of us have a profound dread of Cleveland Heights elections. It is baffling that this vibrantly diverse community of all places is home to vitriolic campaigns where community members spend a lot of money and actually fight for the difficult, often painful opportunity to serve in our municipal government. The toxicity is taxing, disgraceful, and quite frankly has a long history of overt racism as white candidates for City Council and the Board of Education have attempted to tarnish the reputations of candidates of color. This tradition of vitriolic effort to undermine equally qualified Black candidates seems the most hypocritical thing that can happen, especially here and now in Cleveland Heights. It needs to stop. Currently, we have 4 candidates for 3 school board positions. The 3 white incumbents are running as a block, seemingly united against an exciting, highly qualified candidate who brings an intersectional perspective. Best practice encourages a healthy rotation of board membership so there's always a mix of veteran and new energy, a preventive measure against stagnation. In addition, anti-racist teachings highlight action beyond performative allyship. White people who are in positions of power need to actively support the leadership of Black colleagues, even and especially when that means not vying for a position. While we cannot single-handedly undo the harm of slavery and genocide, using white advantage to support and elevate Black leadership is how we move forward as a community, with a commitment to work toward actual equity from the top down. We not only welcome all or make space, but we embrace and encourage Black candidates because we want our organization's leadership to reflect community demographics and because we want to disrupt this nation's ceaseless and desperate grip on white power. The only way to counter these roots is for white leaders to endorse rather than fight against exciting and qualified Black, brown, and Indigenous candidates. By running as a block, you risk that community members will vote against you as a block. The optics of this block look like a closed system that does not welcome new energy or new ideas. It painfully looks like 3 white leaders with a death grip on power, rather than representatives who listen to the community in its wish for new energy to join a seasoned board. We respectfully call for one of you, Jody, Malia, or Dan, to allow your term to end. Pass the baton to this exciting new candidate and spare this community from another traumatic election cycle. Between the pandemic and the contract negotiations, this community has gone through 2 collective traumas this past year. We are exhausted and discouraged. We look to you for true leadership to spare us an unnecessarily painful process. Make a pathway for peaceful transition to bring new energy and expertise to this board. Whoever makes this bold, noble decision to withdraw your candidacy and enthusiastically endorse Mr. Clapton Zimler will be seen for your passionate and anti-racist commitment to the betterment of this district. To that end, ask yourself, is it more important to be respected by your community or to remain in a position of power? We ask you to be true representatives. We ask you to be true representatives. Listen to your constituents, stop racist traditions, and reduce this community's election trauma. We ask you to dissolve your block. We ask each of you to make a commitment to not vilify candidates of color as a means to winning this or any election. And we respectfully ask that Malia, Jody, or Dan step aside and endorse the other candidate so our community can benefit from new energy and new ideas through the addition of 1 new board member this fall.
Melissa Wood. Hi, Melissa. Go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Hear you great.
Okay. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Kirby, and Mr. Gaynor. My name is Melissa Wood. I also come here tonight to urge one of you who is running for re-election to step down. By stepping down, you can stand up for representation and inclusion. We have a new candidate for school board. I have never seen a candidate for this position more qualified. Why do you cling so tightly to power? Do you think an almost all-white school board is what this district needs? Have you considered the fact that you are hoarding opportunity? It is not enough to recognize your white privilege. You must work against it. And at this moment, working against it means stepping down and allowing this board to become more representative of this community. We have a stated commitment to equity. Strategic Plan Goal number 4, Strategic Objective 1 is, I quote, to increase and promote the hiring of staff that represent the cultural makeup of the CHUH student body. Surely that representation is also important at the board level. One of you stepping down will be a good action step towards the achievement of this goal. But there are other reasons beyond a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion for you to step down. I get no pleasure from bringing up unpleasant realities. I personally wish you had made different decisions. But the fact remains that you have done damage to this school district, and if we do not have a change in leadership at the board level, we face having to undergo the ugliness again during the labor negotiations of 2022. I would direct your attention to the sign I carry, which I will now also show to the audience. Oh, okay. All right, so everybody can see. There you go. Send Huffmaster home and start real negotiations. This is the sign I carried for the strike that never was. I personally wish you had, no, sorry. This is the sign I carried for the strike that never was. I held on to it because I fear that during the next contract negotiation, history will repeat itself. You will again play the politics of scarcity with our teachers and staff and look for savings everywhere but in the salaries of our top administrators. Before this race is over, it will be common knowledge that on May 22nd of 2020, you contacted Huffmaster, a strike-breaking firm, to prepare for a teacher's strike. That was before you even entered negotiations with the teachers in June. Why? Because you were determined to impose an unfair contract on the teachers' union while pretending for 6 months to be in actual negotiations. It will also become common knowledge that you spent $780,525, more than $750,000 on legal fees for your war on the teachers. And when it came time to negotiate the security guard's contract, you couldn't find $10,000 to offset the increased costs of medical insurance for 20 employees. The state has recently determined that the levy survey you paid for in 2019 was not a legal use of public funds. The decision names Mr. Gaynor and Ms. Kirby as responsible parties. Mr. Posh issued a statement saying that you disagree with the decision and stand by your employees. I find that statement interesting, that you stand by your employees. It is obvious which employees you stand by and value, and which you consider expendable. This is the reason why 700 people log on to watch hours of one of your meetings, because we don't trust you, because we never know what is coming next. It is why community members spend countless hours figuring out how to make successful requests for your public records so they can piece together real timelines and hidden agendas. You have turned lack of transparency into an art form. Mr. Gaynor has never answered my question of how Huffmaster and those hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees fit into the 5-year forecast. Yet you stand by Mr. Gaynor. You don't stand with the teachers, security guards, secretaries, cafeteria workers, librarians, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, counselors, social workers, cleaners, and all the rest of the staff that keep our schools running. And if you don't stand with these employees, how, pray tell, are you standing with our students? We are fighting with the state for fair funding. Don't make us battle on two fronts. So, we ask one of you, Dan, Malia, Jody, to step down. Welcome a new voice. Acknowledge the anger and fear. I'm just about there, Jim. Acknowledge the anger and the fear that the actions of this board have created in the community. Realize that a commitment to equity means nothing unless it includes equity in compensation and opportunity for all our workers. Give us reason to hope. This district does not have to operate this way. You can change the dynamic. Let me retire this sign. Thank you.
Mario, you're next. Thanks for being here. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mario Clopton-Zimler. I live at 3856 Kirkwood Road in the Noble neighborhood, www.mario4tigernation.com. I'm here today commenting on the Finding for Recovery report that noted the utilizing of public funds was illegal by our state auditor. Now, I'm talking specifically about this because it was a missed opportunity for a Board of Education where there are so many constituents that are concerned about the transparency of the work that we do. We missed an opportunity to show that we are understanding of the heightened scrutiny of how we spend money because our local tax burden is so much. Except as otherwise provided in Division C2 of this section, no Board of Education shall use public funds to support or oppose the passage of a school levy or bond issue, or to compensate any district employee for the time spent on any activity intended to influence the outcome of a school levy or bond election. Ohio Revised Code also prohibits political subdivisions, including school districts, from, among other things, publishing, distributing, or otherwise communicating information that supports the passage of a levy or bond issue. Now, this district this past year has done so many surveys. We've seen Google surveys and Google forms and interest forms everywhere. The over-communication is clear and it's intentional, and that's great. This particular survey was like none of the other surveys that we have done as a board to collect feedback about what we are doing. So I've really tried to look for our strategy group, RSG, and Lake Research in board docs, in some sort of official board something to get some context about what was happening here. And without finding anything, the only thing I can conclude was that this expenditure was something that was approved by the superintendent and the CFO as an expenditure that was already budgeted in department spendings, right? Something like that. I wonder what would have happened had the board been more forward about the inquiry about where the money was being spent, about what RSG was intending to do. It also seems a bit wonky that RSG was kind of made the subsidiary, the middle person for Lake Research to do the survey. That way you could go back and if something went wrong, say a conversation like our superintendent was not immediately responsible for putting money towards a survey, like was said in the board response to the outcome from the auditor. So, at the very least, this was a missed opportunity to say, you know what, we weren't as transparent as we could have been. At the minimum of this was improprietous. At the maximum definition of this was illegal action. And while you are supporting your employees, which, they need that support, I suppose, in this situation, because those are some heavy charges, there is no indication of the board's responsibility to making sure that the superintendent and that the superintendent's designees are acting in a way that is responsible to the taxpayers and the voters of Cleveland Heights University Heights schools. You missed the opportunity to say, we don't think we did something illegal, but we were not as forthcoming as we should have been. We're going to do better. We sincerely apologize for another negative news story about Cleveland Heights University Heights. That was something that was missed. Let's take this opportunity and make sure that, one, we have policies and procedures to assure that something like this doesn't happen again, for future administrations especially, because we kind of know the deal, but we're all going to be gone one day. But also to make sure that we're making it clear to people who aren't satisfied with how we're spending money that we are going to do everything we can to make certain that how we spend money in this district is on the up and up and respectful of the hard work that taxpayers do to pay their taxes. Thank you.
I would encourage, if anybody wants any more information on that particular subject regarding the state auditor and their report, to go into our news items. There is a report that, a statement that we made regarding that item. Let's move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I motion we consider the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? We've had it in advance.
More retirements, people we're going to miss.
Yes.
It's been a year of retirements, as we all saw last week at the awards ceremony for teachers and staff. What was it? It was like 7 retirees last year, and Liz, 27 or 37 this year. Just a order of magnitude difference. So thank you to everybody who has worked for the district and who is moving on to either more rest or more adventures.
Any other comments? Questions? Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Let's move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay. So I do have a report here. We'll also load it into board docs. Kate, then I just shared it with you. My apologies, I forgot to do that. But the board does have written copies, and so we'll go through that. I could try to project it, but I've been having issues with my computer. It looks odd when I project it. So I'm going to give reports for the month of May aligned to our strategic goal areas. I'll talk about academics, goals 1 and 2. Thank you, Kathan. Celebrating staff, goal 4, advocacy, goal 5, and operations, goal 5. Towards the end, I'm going to share my instructional model recommendations for school year 22. So just so you know, Jim, I'll be asking for a motion to accept that recommendation for the instructional model for next year. So in terms of our academic updates, in the month of June, we have currently 365 June graduates for the class of 2021. We have an additional about 25 students that are working through the summer to complete their requirements, and so we'll also be having a summer graduation, and I'll share that information with the board. Class of 2021 has done a fabulous job with college scholarships, earning at this moment $13.9 million in scholarship awards. That's a mix of both academic and athletic scholarships. We'll also continue to support the class of 2021 in college, the college application process and the FAFSA process during summer melt. So we have 3 counselors that are working through the summer to help assist students, because we know even after they finish high school, sometimes they need some transition support. But congratulations to the class of 2021. So very, very proud of them and all the work they've done, especially this year. And really want to celebrate them. In terms of the end of school year, we had many, many celebrations. Our graduation was June 4th last week. We also had our middle school ceremonies on May 27th and Monticello on June 1st. And multiple 5th grade ceremonies, clap outs, award ceremonies, drive-through graduation ceremonies. I have to really credit the schools for being nimble, because the other changing weather changed almost every plan and date of graduation, including the high school graduation, but teams kind of coordinated and adjusted. Also last month, as you recall, the National Honor Society did have their induction ceremony, and we had 60 new members join the ranks of the National Honor Society. We also were informed that one of our students is one of the esteemed U.S. presidential scholars, 1 in 3 in Ohio, 1 in 161 in the country. And Mr. Meister, the teacher that also was nominated by Maple, received the U.S. Presidential Scholars Program Distinguished Teacher Award. Thank you.
Mr. Meister is pretty good. He's my daughter's favorite. Just
In terms of for summer learning opportunities, continued in terms of for goals 1 and 2, our summer camp, summer school, summer recovery, multiple summer programs kicked off just this week, yesterday. And so that has started. They'll run for 8 weeks. The summer camp program will. We also have our different summer school sessions that are running. Summer reading also has kicked off, so we're partnering with Heights Libraries. They were actually here today doing some work with our summer camp too as well. There's some yoga, some libraries. So we have our partners who have started to come in to do work in the camp too as well. We have, just information on summer reading that we share with families. And then every student in the district has access to the academic summer boost. So we have enrolled each family in an opportunity to do enrichment at their own pace, aligned to the students' academic needs. So again, we've shared that information with families. Those accounts, these are tech systems that we've been using for a while in the district, but our families will have access to those. And we'll continue to remind families, because we know there's a lot of stuff happening at the end of the year, that option is there for them for some additional enrichment for students. So that's goals 1 and 2. In terms of goal 4, celebrating staff, and Mr. Meister, who we just mentioned in terms of being a distinguished teacher, also was celebrated during our annual staff awards ceremony. During that ceremony, we recognized all of our nominees in the 3 key categories of Helping Hand of the Year, Teacher of the Year, and Administrator of the Year. And then we announced our winners as well. So those winners are Octavia Houston from Boulevard, Rebecca McDonald, Teacher of the Year from Heights High School. Octavia was our Helping Hand of the Year from Boulevard. And then the Administrator of the Year, John Fullerman from Heights High School. So let's give them, again, a round of applause. It was a beautiful event, and again, something that we had to adjust and pivot to, and the team did a really great job of transforming the auditorium. Very exciting. As it relates to advocacy, everyone knows that this is a very, very busy time and that there are a lot of things that are happening. So I know there's a lot of information on here. We'll have this posted so people have access to this information. Last week, the Senate did pass their version of fair school funding, and there are definitely some changes in there that are of concern as we try to really advocate to maintain the integrity of Representative Cupp's work. So the Senate bill, they changed the funding formula that was in the original House bill. That the Senate bill does indicate that ed choice deductions would no longer come from district budgets, which is something that, of anything that was really, really attractive in terms of the changes, that's probably the thing that we're most happy about. However, we know a couple things. One, that still has an overall impact on the Ohio budget because you have increased vouchers. And secondly, we have to see how things, first of all, will it survive as we go back and forth, but how would that really shake out in terms of the impact on the district? So one thing that Scott and I talk about a lot is what is this really going to look like? We're not going to really know until we get to the end of June in terms of impact. One piece that's different in terms of the Senate's version of the bill is that version increased the amounts for ed choice pretty significantly. So for the K-8 students, it would go from $4,650 to $5,500. For 9 to 12, $6,000 to $7,500. So you see a really big increase in the vouchers and, of 25%. But when you look at the increase for students in regular public schools and school systems, only a 1.5% increase. So you see some huge disparities there in terms of the differences in those funding amounts. So that's something that our advocates were all kind of fighting to try to get that original language back. And then also there's some relaxing of ed choice eligibility criteria as a part of Senate's bill. These things really kind of work in tandem to increase vouchers, voucher access in the state. And as everyone knows, we're a part of a growing group of districts that are, really fighting vouchers in general, just given the impact that we know they have on the budgets and really trying to get the state to make changes there. One thing I just wanted to point out, because we have been really working on this all year, and this nuance in terms of counting state testing from the spring was something that the team at Cleveland Heights University Heights caught, only district in the state that caught this, and we were able to continue to push and press. And actually, the Senate did agree with that change to make sure that districts are not penalized for testing this spring. So as the bills continue to roll through, that's the piece that we think will stay intact. So I'm really happy about that. And again, Allison Bird and Sharon Roller caught it. I just have to say their names because they read the fine print of everything. And then, so I have just some information about additional talking points if people want to reach out to their senators. These are talking points that come from VASA, OASBO, OSBA. And as many of you all know, there is a rally tomorrow that's sponsored by the Ohio Organizing Coalition. I know that the Ohio Federation of Teachers, the Ohio Education Association is also involved with that. That's tomorrow at the State House at 11 o'clock a.m. In Columbus. And really that's about maintaining the integrity of the fair school funding, original fair school funding bill. So that's advocacy. I know there's a lot to talk about there, but I'm going to kind of keep going through, and then if we want to revisit that, we can. So under Goal 5, operations, we're still awaiting guidance from the Cuyahoga County Board of Health on, summer safety protocols. That has not been developed yet. It's not available yet. And so we've maintained our current practices in terms of our summer programming. So my recommendation is that we'll continue to implement our mask policy. And then if we get some guidance from the Board of Health, we'll revisit the temperature checks and also the use of the shields. But I want the summer team to kind of assess that. We'll also reach out to parents to kind of get their feedback too. So we'll keep things in place for now, but as we get information and kind of talk to our teachers and our administrators, our community partners, and also the parents, if there's some adjustments to be made, we'll do that for the summer. And then summer meal pickup continues. We've communicated that information, and we'll continue to get that out. Final piece of my report are my recommendations for next year. I did share this with our staff and with our families, just so they knew kind of as we left the school year my recommendation. So our reopening committee meetings, advisory committees have been meeting. We've been talking to, staff across multiple areas. I know board members have heard lots of feedback from teachers as you've visited classrooms. I want to say that the teachers have just done a tremendous job in the most challenging circumstances. And that goes for all of our staff members. Everyone's had to adjust and has done a great job with it. We know as we go into next school year, we have to stay safe for sure, but also implement a model that's going to really meet the needs of our students. As we look at the preliminary data around attendance alone and grades, kids do better when they are with their teachers 5 days a week in school, no question, no question. There are certainly some outliers, but by and large, students do much better 5 days a week in person with their teachers. It's also really difficult to do things like concurrent teaching, especially at the middle school level, and even some of our upper elementary teachers were doing that as well. I mean, again, hats off to them, really challenging. It's not ideal. So now the rates are going down, policies are relaxing in the state, vaccine available is expanded, fingers crossed it can happen quickly for elementary school students. My recommendation is that we offer only 2 models next year. One, a traditional 5-day-a-week in-person traditional schedule. That's the one option. The other option is a fully remote option. No concurrent teaching. We have a committee of teachers from all of our buildings, administrators in most of our buildings, some central office staff that have been planning and looking at research models to build the remote model out. I expect to have that towards the end of June after they have their last meeting. And so I'll bring that to the board once they've solidified that. But I want to give them due diligence, time to research and really come with a strong recommendation. My first request is to you, Jim, for a motion to accept that instructional recommendation for school year 22. Only two options, a 5-day, full-day in-person model, and a remote option.
So what about if if COVID comes back, and are you still going to be looking at, okay, so parents need to know what's going to go happen
Right.
in the fall, and they probably need to know now
Right.
what our intention is.
Right.
So, my personal opinion, I do agree with what you're saying. I do also want to have those sort of an escape hatch.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
If it's not safe. And I think that's where we need to really make sure, because, last year was mostly about safety.
Yep.
And the decisions that were made.
Yeah, I agree, and I should have added to that, pending, low COVID rates and continuing to follow the guidance from the Board of Health. Yeah, so that would be a part of the recommendation for sure. That also applies to, as we look at what our policies will be for next year, any adjustments that we make, if we have to go back, we have to go back based upon what the science is telling us at that time and what the rates look like.
So we've had to sort of, decamp and send everybody home and figure out how to go remote once, well,
Right.
twice, actually. So we know that we can do that should we need to. The question is, what would trigger that decision? And it's hard to know at this point what might happen which would make it the right answer. Because everybody 16 and up has access to the vaccine. We know that our staff is at a 90%-ish rate, and we don't know what's happening with the teenagers because that's up to each family to make their decision. 12 and up, right, have access to the vaccine. So I think that it would be, if something horrible happens in the under 12 set, if we start seeing numbers there, that would be a trigger. I get a sense that in the 12 and up, we're less likely to have
Correct.
issues in the next school year, but again, you never know. And there's a piece of me that says we should, have that trigger figured out in advance, and then there's a piece of me that says we have no way of knowing what's going to happen. And so we just have to be flexible and rely on the fact that we've done this already, so it'll be so much easier if, God forbid, we have to do it again.
Correct.
I do agree that the concurrent teaching has been incredibly difficult. I mean, very well executed, but incredibly difficult on the teachers, and that's not an ideal way to plan for next year, that we should lose that so that it's an either or. I can hear already people asking, can we switch from one to the other?
Right.
Back and forth, for whatever reason, depending on what's going on, at a family level. So I think it will be important that there be some way of making sure that the two systems are roughly parallel so that a student can move from one to the other without, a tremendous loss or.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a part of the principle, so I think that's some feedback I'll take back to the
Yeah,
group.
I mean,
because-
it's something that,
Yeah.
that the planning committee is going to have to
'cause it was
consider, because we know
hard
it's,
to
they're
go
going to
back
ask
and
for it.
forth. That's the problem. Academically, it was challenging for students. But
Mm-hmm.
I do agree, so if a student is quarantined or, gets sick, well, we have to have something in place for
Yeah.
them, for sure, because that, will likely happen to some degree, hopefully not a high degree for next year, yeah.
Yeah.
Dan, Beverly? Any thoughts?
No, I agree with because it has been challenging for the teachers and the students.
And I'm supportive of the in-school learning, but during the pandemic, we were able to adjust to whatever came our way, and I think we'll be able to do that if, God, knock on wood, that nothing happens. But I think it's really important to get our kids back into the classrooms and the teachers as well. Yeah.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Thank you. I think that this is excellent. I think that having both platforms available to our students is great. I mean, I really believe in the long run, if we are open to it, and I believe that we are, I think that we can learn a lot of lessons and actually improve the product we put in front of our students and that we provide our community. I believe that to my core as a result of this test, if you will. A couple of things that come to my mind when we're talking about an online platform. I think that it would be great for the district if we can decide on a platform as soon as possible, because I think that we can market with that, and I think that we can use that as an opportunity to actually increase and stabilize our enrollment. Because we have members of the community who are currently using an online platform that is not woven into CHUH. I would love to see those students who utilize our online program to also have access to some of the things that we do like no other district around, like our arts programming, our athletics programming. And I think that is not only an important marketing tool, I think that it serves the whole child, which a lot of these other platforms may not be doing. And I think that the social interaction is critical. The expressiveness that comes in the arts is critical. So I think that it touches a lot of different stones that are really important to this district and to this community. So I think as soon as we can decide on a platform and begin sharing the plan with the community, the sooner we do that, the better off that we and our students will be. I also think that we need to really stress to students using those programs opportunities for interaction outside of their homes. Even if they choose not to be involved in our arts, our sports, I think that it's really important that we loop them into rec programs and other activities in the community, because there's an isolation piece that is real and it is deep. In Chardon, we lost a student last summer. So we have to do everything in our power to meet all of those needs. But bravo and thank you. I think that this is the start of a really, really good plan.
Yeah, I really agree with Dan. I mean, if we already have people using a charter school for online learning, I'd much rather have them here. And as Dan says, it's all about the whole child. It's just not, sitting in front of a computer and the academics. It's the music and the clubs and everything else that, we can support and that we have operational here that really makes Heights really special. And I think from a cost perspective, I mean, we're on a cap. If it's just going from, a remote session to another remote session, that's not that costly to us. Whereas if we're trying to staff up for, an influx of kids.
Okay. We'll take this feedback back that you all shared to the exec planning committee.
Thank you.
So we need a motion to approve this.
I motion that we approve the instructional model for school year 22 as offered.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Mr. Posh,
Yes.
Ms. Wright.
Yes.
That does conclude my report. I do know Dr. Lombardo has some items for our consideration.
Oops, where is he?
You're mute. You're muted.
Can you hear me now? Yes, we're good? All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. We have 3 items. 2 are for board action. The first board action is accepting the changes to the 21-22 calendar. You may recall last month I brought forward some changes to the calendar based on the negotiated 795 union contract. We did allow 30 days since the last spoke of this. So this would be an opportunity for the board to finalize the approval of that calendar so that we can get that up on the website.
Do we have a second? Any discussion?
I just want to note that the comments were all positive in terms of the feedback that we received, so I don't think there's anything we need to worry about with those changes.
Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Mr. Posh,
Yes.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Wright.
Yes.
Again, for board action, we have policy group B, which I brought forth on April 6th was the first reading. May 4th was the second reading. And today is the third and final reading of the 14 policies under group B. So there would be action for accepting this group of policies would need to happen tonight.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Oh, second.
I mean, we've looked at this a few times already. Any other comments, questions, discussion?
Nothing new.
Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
You're still on mute.
Can you hear me now? Great. Okay, sorry about that. This third action, there will be no board action that's needed tonight. This would be a second reading of board policies group C. There are 16 policies in this group. You may recall our first reading was May 4th. Today is just a second reading, and then I will have to bring it back for the third reading next month. But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything with policy group C.
Dr. Lombardo, did you get an answer about policy 7440 with the video surveillance?
I am having Ricky and the principals check all the schools. So the message has been sent, and I will bring back my results once we check all the schools.
Thank you. And then my concern with policy 2431, whoops, I just touched something on my screen, that was bad, was, and I have to reread it more closely, is whether we are in a position where we might get in trouble or have difficulty with some of our transgender students being locked out of athletic options. And I don't know what Ohio High School Athletic Association policy says, but we refer to it, and I don't want our students to have their options limited. And so I want to make sure that whatever we have in place is as open as possible.
Absolutely, and I will check on that, and I'll bring that information back to you as well.
Thank you.
Important the OHSAA is certainly an important governing body to keep an eye on, but also, at this point, so is the state legislature.
Well, that's, of
And-
course, my real concern
Yeah.
is that there are things happening at the state level all over the country which are intended to, mess up the lives of our students.
Right.
And all of our students have the right to athletic participation if they want it, just like they all have the right to math and English and history. So I just want to make sure that we don't, that we make, that we keep it in place through our policy, because we can't control the state, unfortunately, but we can control our internal policies.
Can we add this as an agenda item, Ms. Kirby, when Molly and I meet with you in our weekly meetings? I'd like to make sure that there's an out and possibly decouple our policy from the state's policy, if there's any way of doing that.
I think that we also need to have a conversation about critical race theory. I think
You haven't been listening to the radio the past few days,
well,
have you?
I think that we as a board, this may be something that we need to do a resolution on. Because there's, Diane Grendel's proposal is disgusting.
Got it.
Back to Group C. Any other questions or thoughts for Dr. Lombardo?
Nope.
Okay, so we
Very
have,
much, everyone.
thank you. There's also an item on your agenda, Ms. Kirby, about the Ohio School Athletic Association membership.
Yeah, that's an annual item. Actually, Paul, if you could jump back on, that's required and that we vote on it, I believe, every year. Am I correct on that, Scott?
Yeah. Do I have a motion? to
I
approve
motion
membership?
we consider the OHSAA membership.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Posh,
Yes.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Thank you.
I guess for the record, if I may, I don't want to appear to be clumping the OHSAA in with the nonsense of Diane Grindel. OHSAA has a long
Yes.
history of supporting all students. We need to keep an eye.
Right,
No-
I just
no
want to
doubt.
make sure that we don't
Yes.
have things that are at cross purposes.
Absolutely.
And that we don't inadvertently limit our students' choices,
Right.
that's all.
Right.
Anything else for your superintendent report? Move on to the treasurer's report.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just a couple of very quick items. So for full transparency and for viewers, you'll notice there were no monthly financials, which we typically would do at the regular meeting, and that is because we have a work session dedicated to strictly finance items on June 29th, so the monthly financials will be presented at that time, so you can see how that ties together with all of the other documents that we're going to provide to you then. The second thing is, I know we touched on this briefly, that we're in the process of working through debt refinancing. So that is moving ahead. The market still looks favorable. And if it continues to be, then we'll have some initial resolutions for the board to approve next Tuesday on the 15th. So I'll have those to you in advance. We're going to try to refinance both the COPS that are being paid for from the Permanent Improvement Fund, but also the overall bond debt that's being paid from the Bond Retirement Fund. So the whole purpose is, again, much as you would with your home, when the interest rates are lower, you take advantage of that, and that will be less interest that will be paid on the debt over the life of the bonds by taxpayers. So we'll try to work out the debt restructuring so that there's some initial savings, particularly with the COPS, so that that'll free up a little more PI money, so that we can use that for, different,
You
different capital
refinanced several bond issues. I remember
We
maybe
have,
2
yes.
years ago, 3 years ago, there was an
It's been a few,
opportunity to
yes.
get better interest rates, and you think we can get better yet?
Correct.
Good.
Yeah, so in fact, we're in the process of working through the preliminary offering circular, which is, about 4 inches thick, and then a similar statement that has to happen for both types of debt. So it's a lot of work and a lot of people involved, but it's well worth the investment of time for the community and savings of tax dollars that we certainly don't want to pass up. So again, you'll probably see some resolutions coming to you this week that we'll need to work on or approve next week, because there is a very specific timetable that has to happen for this to actually go out in July, and then probably the new debt would be sold in September.
Okay.
And the last thing is, and Ms. Kirby already kind of touched on it, was the whole Senate school funding plan. So, we are continuing to monitor that. Our professional organizations in particular had a press conference today, the Fair School Funding Plan Work Group, to talk about that. So I know that will be available for people who didn't get to see it. There will be video of that, but really, as Liz said, we have some serious concerns with what they're still proposing. And, even the simulations that we've looked at so far don't necessarily give us all the detail we want to see. For example, DPIA, I saw in another document, the Disadvantaged Pupil Impact Aid, it suggested that we don't get that in the Senate version, but that's really not shown in the simulation. So there's a whole lot of detail that we need to suss out, and it's, as everyone has noted, it's going to take some time, and we don't even know what the final version will be, but just, to put on everyone's radar that we're definitely monitoring that and trying to, the professional organizations are asking for our feedback as they move forward and as they are advocating on our behalf, so we're working with them on that. That's it for my report.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
For those of us who are going to Columbus tomorrow, what is the one sentence ask? Because when you get too deep in the weeds, the whole thing is overwhelming. And there are a number of people who are driving down to Columbus tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do they want to say?
We might all have different opinions on what that is. I would think, though, what the professional organizations are really focusing on is the fact that the Senate version of the funding plan is residual budgeting. It's the same old that we've always had, which is we have X amount of money for education, and we're going to work our way backwards into what we're going to give, to public schools. So that's a big deal versus the Fair School Funding Plan, which is actually, bipartisan, thought through, this is what it takes to educate a student, and all the things that come with that. This is just the Senate decided, this is kind of a residual budgeting situation, and here's what we have to offer. And also the whole ed choice component and the expansion of that is the other big point. And so even though there's still direct funding from the state, as is in the House version, and the issue is they're offering more money. It's still inexplicable why they're going to offer $7,500.
Piece published on cleveland.com in support of the Fair School Funding Plan. Paul Wong and Olivia Peoples, that is available at cleveland.com still. And it is an excellent piece of writing that is worth a minute or two. So that's my update.
Any new business? Unfinished business? Correspondence and announcements?
I've received a couple of calls and in-person conversations from parents who are a little confused by Edgenuity. And their students have been signed up for summer boost programs, and they don't quite understand what's going on. So I think it would be a good idea to explain better, more clearly, whether, like who chose what the classes are and what are the expectations for the students during the summer.
We did put a little more information in our last letter, so if there's been, I'll connect with you after to find out who those parents are. If there's been some additional questions after that, after I got that feedback, we put it in the letter that went out Friday. So So if you've gotten questions since then too, I'll let the team, to
Okay,
know.
thank you.
Because we got those questions too, yeah. And as you said, it's connected to the summer boost, so Edgenuity is the summer boost.
That serves as the summer
And
boost
it's an opportunity for people to do more work.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. And the students have been using it, so we put the directions in, but, we're going to send it out and continue to communicate that, so we'll just add, that clarity to as we continue to promote it, because we want kids to take advantage of it
Right.
and know how to do
So,
it.
so the
Yep.
parents have said kids need to know what the expectations are, because the kids are going to do as little as they think they can get away with.
Gotcha.
That's all.
Gotcha. We'll add that when we send out our reminders.
Cool.
Hey, because we actually do have a competition. So kids, it's a competition based on how much they complete. So we'll put that in the reminders that we send out. Got it. I understand. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll?
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Posh,
Yes.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.